Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about a super powerful psychological glitch, one that's cost investors trillions, literally trillions of dollars. It's this trick our mind plays on us, right? It makes us see this brilliant, shining glow where we should be seeing some massive red flags. So, yeah, let's get right into it.
So let's kick things off with a puzzle. It's one you've probably seen play out again and again in the news. Think Enron, think Theranos.
You know the story. You see this super charismatic leader, right? They've got a world-changing idea, a narrative that just feels right. And we all get swept up in that excitement. But here's the real head-scratcher. How do so many smart, experienced people completely miss the fatal flaws that are hiding in plain sight?
Well, the answer has a name. It's a cognitive bias called the halo effect. And here's how it works. You take one really positive trait, say a super charismatic CEO or a mind-blowing product idea, and that one thing creates this positive halo. And that halo is so bright, it makes us overlook all the negatives, all the fundamental flaws. It's basically a mental shortcut that, well, it makes us blind to reality.
And look, this is not some newfangled idea. We're talking about something first identified way back in 1920. A psychologist named Edward Thorndike noticed it when he was studying military officers. He saw that if an officer thought a soldier was good at one thing, they just kind of assumed he was good at everything. From there, the idea got baked into behavioral economics, and as you're about to see, it's become a pattern in some of the biggest business blow-ups in history.
So why do our brains fall for this trick over and over? What makes us so susceptible? It's really not because we're dumb or anything. It's actually because our brains are hardwired for efficiency. I mean, they're constantly looking for shortcuts to make sense of a super complex world.
But what's really fascinating is that the halo effect, it doesn't work alone. Now, it's like the leader of a whole gang of other biases that supercharge it. You've got confirmation bias, right? That's where we only look for info that proves we were right in the first place. Then there's the narrative fallacy, which is why a good story is always more convincing than a boring old balance sheet. And of course, you can't forget herd behavior. You know, when we see everyone else jumping on the bandwagon, we just figure, hey, they must know something I don't, and we hop on too.
Okay, so when we look at the world of finance, this effect isn't just a one-trick pony. It actually pops up in a few different and, honestly, really seductive forms.
So the biggest one, the most common halo by far, is the charismatic CEO. You know the type, the visionary storyteller who can sell you on an absolutely grand future. But that's not the only way it happens. The halo can also come from the promise of some disruptive new tech, or from the trust we all have in a really strong brand. And lately, there's even this green halo, that warm, fuzzy feeling we get from a company that seems really socially and environmentally responsible.
But here's the thing. There's a huge danger here. Because when these halos are built on, let's say, shaky foundations, they don't last. They eventually shatter. And when they do, boy, the results can be absolutely devastating. So let's look at a few really famous examples. I mean, who could forget Enron? Their halo is being named America's most innovative company. Everyone thought their leaders were geniuses, creating this brilliant asset-light strategy for the new economy. And that glow, that halo, was so bright that it just totally blinded analysts, investors, everyone, to what was actually happening behind the scenes. Things like shady accounting, tons of hidden debt, and just, widespread fraud. And then you have Theranos. Oh man, Theranos. The halo there was all wrapped up in its founder, Elizabeth Holmes. She was pitched as this charismatic visionary on a mission to completely revolutionize healthcare. And that story was so compelling, so powerful, it convinced pretty much the whole world that this groundbreaking technology was real. When, in reality, the tech, it never even worked. Not at all. The entire company was just a mirage.
WeWork is another perfect example. Their whole halo was built on a narrative, a story, that they weren't just some boring real estate company. Oh no, they were a tech company, a disruptor building a global community. And that story, pushed hard by their larger-than-life CEO, let their valuation just skyrocket, all while hiding a very simple fact. They were a real estate business that was just burning through mountains and mountains of cash. $47 billion. Just let that sink in. That was WeWork's valuation at its peak, a number built almost entirely on a story, on a halo. And it all came crashing down, just dramatically, once the cold, hard financial facts couldn't be ignored anymore. So, okay, this all leads to the big question, the crucial one. How do you protect yourself? How do you keep from falling for the next great story? How do you actually pierce through that seductive glow?
Well, it really all starts with just being self-aware. Seriously, we have to be honest with ourselves and acknowledge that our brains are literally wired to fall for a good story. We're built to take these shortcuts. And just knowing that awareness, that's your first and honestly your most important line of defense.
And that awareness leads to 4 really practical steps you can take. Okay, number 1, focus on the fundamentals. Look, a great story is nice, but positive cash flow, that's way better. Number 2, actively go looking for dissent. Find the people who are skeptical, who are pushing back, and really listen to why they're skeptical. 3, diversify. It's the easiest, simplest way to protect yourself in case one of those visionary bets you made turns out to be, an illusion. And finally, number 4, it brings us back to the start. Know your own biases. Just constantly remind yourself that you're wired to fall for this stuff, and it'll help you stay objective.
Look, the halo effect isn't going anywhere. In fact, you could argue it's getting even stronger. I mean, think about it. With social media and AI, you can spread a story, a narrative, faster and more convincingly than ever before. So it's probably going to get even more powerful. Which leaves us with one final, and I think really critical question to think about. When you look out at the investment world right now, where do you see the next great halo starting to form?